And on the budget, I want to start off on inheritance tax because it's the biggest change. And I want to focus first of all on pensions because it affects almost all of our clients. And the major theme is just how ridiculously complicated it's become. In the 35 years I've been in this industry, it is now more complicated than at any time before. And it's because the rules stack on top of each other that create unintended consequences. Some of the numbers just don't seem to make any sense. I had 5 people on our senior team checking some of these numbers because I just looked at them and went, huh? And if I'm looking at them going, huh? Then what on earth are you as individuals going to do? So I want to introduce you to a real life client. We've changed the names to protect the innocent, but the circumstances are all right. This is a process that we've been through very recently with this client, whose review just happened to fall pretty much straight after the budget. And John's been with us for over 10 years. He's got a lovely portfolio, £2 million of assets and £700,000 in a pension pot. His wife, absolutely lovely lady, died a few years ago. And he's got 3 children and 4 grandchildren, if I remember correctly. You've all heard of the pensions triple lock. Well, I've got a new one for you. It's a pensions triple dock. How the new rules will keep docking it for you on the way down. And there are 3 impacts now for John. And the first one is that because now the pension is taxable, he will lose his main residence nil rate band. So that means that he'll be paying tax on more of his estate than he was doing previously. Also, they now want 40% inheritance tax on the pension pot. And because John's now over 75, the kids will also then be paying income tax on that pension pot. So we go from entirely tax-free to 3 different levels of taxes that are actually applying in this circumstances. Now, John's attitude before this was that the pension pot would be left untouched and passed on to the children. He didn't need to access it. That was part of our strategy over the last decade. In fact, we'd continued to pay into it. Now, HMRC said as part of their consultation around this that their frustration was that pensions were being used as intergenerational planning tools. Yep, we were doing that. They were not used as retirement planning tools. What HMRC wanted was when John first came on board with us, when he retired, was to take his pension so they could collect some tax. It's not an unreasonable idea at all. The idea was you got tax relief on the way in, a bit of tax-free cash, and you got taxed on the way out. So that was his general strategy that we'd been utilising. He'd already made gifts to his children for house purchase and other needs over the years as and when was required. And when we were having discussions with him around his inheritance tax strategy, he was kind of going, I'm not that bothered about it. I don't feel the need to do much more. My kids are all right. I've already helped them out. And actually, when you look at the rate of tax, it's about 15% of my estate. That's not too bad. So he's kind of quite laid back about it. And so we're like, okay, you're the client. Oh, that's changed. And it's changed because of how he feels, not necessarily the amount of money. It's changed because he feels that he's being attacked and he feels vulnerable to future changes. And he's now coming up with phrases like, but I've paid enough tax during lifetime, they're taking too much on death now, thank you all the same. He's frustrated because he's saying that he doesn't feel that he's getting value for money for the taxes that he's paying. And he believes that the changes are unfair. He said, I paid into this pension based upon these rules, you're changing the rules. He said, changing the rules post-event is criminal, was a phrase that he used. Not my opinion, but it's how he feels. And when we're made to feel a certain way, it motivates us to take action. Let's have a look at the real world impact for John. And this is where the numbers start to get confusing. Obviously, pre and post budget, he's still got the same amount of money. But as I said, he now loses a main residence nil rate band. So his tax-free allowances drop from 850,000 down to 650,000, or sorry, 825. His inheritance tax now increases from 470 to 820. But if we assume that his children take the pension in full after his death, then the income tax on that pension drops from 315 to 290. With me so far? So his net inheritance to the kids drops from 1.9 to 1.6, which is a 36% difference. I'm like, well, let's listen a moment. Hang on a minute. I'm taking 40% tax on the pension, and I'm losing an allowance. How can it only be 36% of the pension value? And it's because the income tax on the pension drops. So the interrelation between those three things creates an unusual number. And that led me to think, okay, what other numbers might apply? And this is really strange, in that in John's case, at the moment, it's 36%. If John's kids instead paid 20% tax on that pension, so we're able to use more beneficiaries or take it over a longer time period, then by having a lower rate of income tax, the effective rate of tax on the pension goes up to 44%. If by dying before 75, not a recommended tax strategy, that's a really good one, keep going, or eliminating the income tax altogether, again by taking it over a long time period, then the effective tax on the pension goes up. So how can it be where the income tax goes down and the tax on the pension goes up? Are you with me so far? No, great. You don't need to be. But I just want to highlight that theme of how complicated it is and how rules interact to not make any sense. Just to add further complications, you may or you may not lose your main residence nil rate band. You may lose two main residence nil rate bands. I only highlighted three. They could retain the pension and pay no income tax. If you left the pension to a newborn, it could continue to grow tax-free for 60, 70, 80 years. Pension rules are going to change a lot over that time period. And of course, the rules could change at any point in time, even if we don't get a new government. So it's really simple, isn't it? And it's tempting to go, it's complex, it's messy, let's do nothing. And that is a strategy, it's fine. Not one I would recommend. And John comes along and says, I want some strategies. I'm not happy about this. I'm motivated to do something about it. What can I do? And we said, okay, we'll give you a first very quick win strategy. It's simple and it's not complicated. We've got a copy of John's will on file, and we have a look. And John is supporting three charities via his will. And I always find it fascinating that when you look at charities in people's wills, it reflects what's happened in their lives. And the first charity was Manchester Grammar School. John went to Manchester Grammar, some of his kids went to Manchester Grammar, and some of his grandkids are planning to go to Manchester Grammar. So something that's very close to his heart. Guess what one of his hobbies was? Sailing. So RNLI kicks in, and his wife is just a hospice. So you can see. And he'd left £25,000 to each of these three charities via the will. So that gave us an indication of who he wanted to support and the fact that he was happy to support charities. So he said, okay, let's change it. Rather than leaving 75,000, we're going to change the instructions in the will to leave 10% of the taxable estate to charity. So that totals 205,000. So I said, okay, John, give away more money. And we're going to suggest that all of that 205,000 comes out of the pension rather than out of the free estate, as we call it. And that has a number of overlapping unintended consequences. Number one, the gift itself is exempt from inheritance tax. So we save £82,000. Number two, because it's 10% of the estate, the rate of inheritance tax drops from 40% to 36%. So that saves a further 73,000. And because we're taking it all out of the pension and not out of anywhere else, the income tax that beneficiaries would pay drops by 70,000. Now, if we add up all of those numbers, we end up with this. The charity gets an extra 130,000. Remember, they were getting 75,000 anyway. But his kids are £45,000 better off. So we say to John, you can bury your head in the sand and do nothing if you want, or you can give 130,000 more to the three charities that you love and give £45,000 more to your kids. Would you like to do that? Who in their right mind is going to say no? And a total increase of 175,000, all funded by HMRC. And that's the game of cat and mouse. That's where they're saying, I'm going to do this, and we say, ha 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 ha, but we can do that. And sooner or later, they'll change the rule again, and we'll change another rule again, and that's the game. You can choose to pay as much as you want, or we can choose to try and mitigate it through some relatively simple strategies.